Welcome to this panel discussion on collaboration, driving forces to sustainable plastics, organized by Vinnova and the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency. My name is Anders Schalman and I will be your moderator for this session. The use of plastics is a large part of our everyday lives, and it is an essential part of a material in our economy. But the use of plastics can result in serious negative effect on the environment and on human health. However, if used in a sustainable way, plastics can have great value and in some contexts even contribute to energy savings and reduced climate emissions. But how can we obtain a sustainable use of plastics? And what kind of collaborations between different actors are needed? And how can we stimulate the development of a sustainable use of plastics? These are some of the issues we will discuss today together with our panelists. So welcome Anders Kiel, who is Chief Strategy and R&D Officer at Ragn-Sells. Joakim Wiedesheim, who is CEO of Polymercentrum. Victor Börjesson, Chief Partnership Officer at Pullpack, and Åsa Stenmark, responsible for the National Plastic Coordination at the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I will give you each an opportunity to present your organization or your company, where you come from. But let's start with you, Victor. What is Pullpack?
Thank you. Pullpack is a privately held company based out of Gothenburg, founded back in 2018 around the technology dry molded fiber. So it's a technology industrial method to convert traditional pulp, fluff pulp, into usable products, such as cutlery, trays, bowls, lids, whatever you may use as a consumer. Technology was invented by our founders a few years before the company was formed. We today have customers on a global basis and a partnership structure around the world. We're about 80 people in total and scaling fast.
And your strategy is to replace the sort of one-time use of
Exactly.
plastics.
Single-use products and plastic is what we want to transition into sustainable use of fibers. So we target products that the consumer usually throws away after one-time use.
And you have a target number, right?
Yes, we go for 1 million tons of plastic by the end of 2025 to replace as an accumulated target number.
We wish you good luck on that, on that strategy. So Anders.
Yes. Short, Ragn-Sells is a private held waste management company. We operate in Sweden, Norway, Denmark and Estonia. We have some small offices in Germany as well. We essentially cover the whole recycling area. We have nearly all the operations, cover most industries and sectors. When it comes to plastics, we handle some 40,000 tons a year for mechanical recycling. And we have been around for quite some time. We have third generation family-owned company.
And you mentioned a number when you spoke earlier about 300 billion tons waste every year?
In total, we handle some 6 million tons of waste, and then it's all kinds.
And how many % are recycled of every?
Out of that, it depends how you calculate, but essentially we sell downstream new raw materials for more than 1 billion SEK a year. So.
Right. Thank you. Joakim?
Yes.
What is Polymercentrum?
Polymercentrum is a knowledge company or competence center for companies, especially our 160 member companies. We help first the plastic companies with schools, where we teach unemployed to get the right competence to get an employment in the plastic industry, and also write books, so help the companies to have tomorrow's knowledge today. We also have a competence technical center where we try to learn how to produce with new materials in new ways, and also then see what is the competence that the employees need tomorrow.
Right. Thank you, and we will get back to that very soon. Åsa, could you describe what the Sweden Environmental Protection Agency's role is in this context?
So we have sort of two hats. The one that I'm responsible for is the National Plastic Coordination or Cooperation, where we have the assignment from the government to gain and spread knowledge on sustainable plastic use to companies or actors that are in the plastic value net, as I say. We might come back to that. But we also have the opportunity and the task to create collaboration between different actors. And then, of course, we are an agency, so we also have the opportunity and the task to develop new policy instruments, to enforce legislation, etc., etc. So sort of two different things to do.
Thank you. So let's start by talking about the challenges. Anders, what would you say are the three main challenges for obtaining a sustainable use of plastics?
Well, thank you for having the opportunity to address those. But the top three, there are a number of challenges. So this is from my point of view. The first one is the pricing. So the case for recycling is strong when you have high commodity prices. But the case for recycling of plastics is dead if the oil price is low. That we can see in historical context. So, and we need to recycle even though in periods of time where the commodity prices are low. So that's fundamental. That's a very important one. Then it comes to standardization of qualities. So one of the success stories with PET bottles that goes into deposit systems, one of the major explanations why this works very well is standardized quality. So, and then the third one is related to actually to the waste management hierarchy. And this is the thing, plastic is not one thing. It's not one set of problems. There are different problems. If you have all construction plastics, you have one set of challenges. If you have the packaging issues, you have another subset of challenges. So we need different solutions for different challenges, but we tend to think of plastic as one waste problem and should be handled accordingly. So if you look here, I think we need mechanical recycling. We will need incineration in sometimes for additive substances that is not we don't want to circle away. We need chemical recycling. We may need storage of some polymers for stockpiling.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you, Anders. And do you all agree on these challenges, or would you like to add some? Åsa, what?
I definitely agree on the challenges. No, we won't debate in that way, I think. But I'd like to add also the thing that virgin plastics or new plastics is really cheap material. So that goes for the recycling part and the pricing that you mentioned. But it also goes for it's so easy to use, and it's also true for other materials, of course, but especially plastic. And we can use it in so many ways, as you say. Plastic is. It's not one material, it's like thousands of materials. So that I'd really like to stress that. Yeah. And the cheapness also makes us use it in a take, make, waste way, which is a challenge, of course.
Joachim, would you like to add anything?
Well, yeah, I can do that. I would say that one of the problems that we have had is that we have produced things far away. Now we are more since the COVID and Ukraine war. Everyone sees that we need to have it local and near the next chain in the companies. And also, when you do that, I think we can do this the Swedish way, because in Sweden we do everything together. And also here, if we can create the sustainability chain from recycling to virgin and let everyone understand what the other needs and can and can't, then we are a bit on the way. And we have produced a program, Polka, for Polymercentrum LSA, together with Naturvårdsverket and the companies to start. Because when you measure, first you need to understand that we measure in the same way, because then first we can see, is this better or this? So this is the start, and we have 1.0 out now, and we are already starting to create 2.0. So development. But the key is together.
Yes. Victor?
I can only echo what everyone has said, but I think taking a step back and looking from the consumer point of view and addressing how we design products for use, the materials that are used in virgin plastics are very cheap, and to address your point on pricing, it's very hard to change the consumer behavior if you have your demands and the virgin plastics are cheap. But if we instead then can look at how do we design the products, are there alternative materials, alternative recycled materials, alternative pricing structures to create a shift? That's where we need to cooperate, because we cannot place the responsibility on the consumer. The consumer is echoing that they want to change, but they cannot be the one that points out the change. That needs to come from the industry and find not one solution, but many solutions.
Yeah, I think that's also a big challenge, that we tend to think that we are going to replace one thing with one other thing. In this case, fossil oil with, I don't know, whatever. But this won't happen, right? So we need to exchange this one thing with many different solutions for different, as you both said, for different things, and that's sort of not what our minds are used to.
Yeah. Because plastics is a very, as you said, a very complex material, or many complex materials, and also a complex value and delivery chain, or a plastic network, as you said. And Joachim, as you said, it takes that we work together. So you have a technical institute as well, where you collaborate with different. How many actors do you have?
It's quite new, because we had the first idea 2 years ago, and we started with a big celebration in August last year. And right now we have 30 companies, but we have Volvo Trucks, Scania, Thule, 3M, Husqvarna, and so on already, and about 25 producing companies as well that wants to learn by us. So
and what are sort of the driving forces for them to engage in this project and to work towards sustainability?
First of all, I don't think that in short time it's not the most reasonable to say that no fossil plastic, because we have it, and we will have it for a couple of years more. So how can you produce exactly the same product with less material and still have the same product? And if it's in a car, you can still crash the car and it will have the same function. If you can reduce with 10% because you do produce in another way, then we have reduced this and for better sustainability. So that's one part. But that means also that we need to talk with the recycling companies, because is this possible to recycle? No. Okay, maybe we can change and take another material that they can recycle, or they need to learn how to recycle this, and we need to learn how to use the material that you can recycle. So that means that it's very, very good to talk together.
Yeah. Let's talk to the recycling guys. What can be recycled?
Yeah.
So, in the recycling business, what is their demand for? So you have to close the loop by looking from the demand side. It's not possible to push it. So when you do the design, you should always look for how much % of recycled material is it within my design. Because we tend to shift, okay, is this possible to recycle? Yes, it is. Oh, good. Then I don't have to cater for my own products. And if you don't do that, you don't do the hard work with standardization. So let me take an example. Why is PET bottles a success story? Because the quality is standardized, meaning that that is one of the few global qualities that are available. So a lot of people take PET bottles to do other stuff. So what is the PET bottle then made out of? New oil. Meaning that if you have more products that have a standardized quality, you will have more loops to get your feedstock from. So, and it's in the design, and it's when you have the pricing. So from a policy perspective, I definitely think there's a need for criteria for more recycled materials to be used. Then you will create a demand, and then you will have to change your design a bit.
So what kind of actors are you collaborating with to achieve this?
We collaborate broadly, I would say. We have, for instance, within the construction industry, we look into recycling of vinyl flooring. We have for hard plastics, we work with another company for better sorting. Much of the hard plastic, it's possible to mechanically recycle if you do the sorting. And if you take away, if you have a good understanding, okay, this piping, this plastic sheet, if you know the qualities and you can sort them, and we do it by hand to a large degree, then you can mechanically recycle it. And then we also collaborate with manufacturers of plastics as well, because plastics is not just the polymers, it's also the additives and the fillers.
Exactly.
And those are often forgotten, right? Additives are quite a big thing. Fillers could be a very large thing. So we work a bit on that as well.
And Victor, who are you collaborating with to?
So our model is a bit unique since we have a licensing business model. We do not sell the machines, we do not sell the materials or anything. We license our technology for the converters, the producers of the products to use. But that means that we are kind of coordinating the entire value chain. We collaborate with everything from pulp providers to additives and barrier providers to the supply companies, logistics, etc. So we are already by nature in our design collaborating with everyone in the value chain. And I think for us it's not about finding one specific organization to work more or less with. It's more about increasing the level of collaboration and kind of getting this sense of urgency. We usually use the comparison with COVID. When COVID hit, respirators were in shortage. And we said, how do we fix this? There are no respirators in the entire European Union. But then within a few weeks, the big manufacturers went together and said, let's put our differences aside. Let's collectively produce respirators. And we didn't have a shortage within 12 weeks. We can do marvelous things when we cooperate and kind of increase the partnerships. It's a very easy thing to talk about, but I think that sense of urgency is something that everyone in the industry needs to talk about. Ragn-Sells and Pullpack may not be the companies that normally talk, but by having a conversation, some ideas will spark and we can bring that into our channels. So I think the frequency is what we want to stress a bit more.
And Åsa, you are responsible for the national plastic coordination. So what do you say? You see all these actors in the value chain. Is there a willingness to collaborate?
Yeah, it's definitely a willingness, which is why I love my job so much. And great enthusiasm about this topic. And I've been working in the waste and material area for a long time, and I remember my first projects where we were gathering the value chain of cars actually, and I think Ragn-Sells was in that project, but it was like they had never talked to each other. This is 15 years ago, but now we see I do see a huge change in this, that actually it's more common that you collaborate. And you also said that it's the Swedish way of doing it. I really think it is. I think we are good in Sweden to sort of lay down the what do you say, the weapons is maybe a bit too harsh, but I think you get what I mean. And sort of talk about and then what can we collaborate around? Maybe not everything, but some things could be sparkles, as you say, of good things that come out of it. And I do think it's really, really important.
Are there any actors in this network in plastics that could be more engaged, or you would like to have more contact with? Or
I'd like to speak to everyone. So if someone wants to speak to me, then please get in contact. But I do think that what we are sort of struggling with, perhaps a little bit, is that not everything has to go through us, because it's me and 4 of my colleagues, and not more than that. So what makes me the most happy is when we organize something, and then people find each other, and then they get back to us and say, okay, but at this conference that you organized, I met this guy, and now we have this project going. That's the best. When I don't have to be involved in all the collaboration, even though I love it. But it's a bit too much.
And you others, are there any actors that you would like to collaborate more with, or you think should collaborate more in the system?
Well, if you had the better pricing and the case for recycling were better always, then you would, in a very natural way, bring all the relevant stakeholders to the table. So, because then everyone would understand, okay, we need to fix this value chain. But the pricing issue is still there. And it needs to be sort of set on a EU level, I think. Can't do it on a national base.
So let's continue on speaking about reuse and recycling. Anders, what would you say? Would we be able to achieve full circularity when it comes to plastics?
Yeah, for me, again, the pricing. Have you ever heard about the low recycling rate of gold? Probably not. Why? Because the pricing is such that this is valuable. We must don't lose out of this material. That is why nearly all the gold that ever have been mined is still in use. And the same goes for valuable things such as copper, etc. But there is no case if the value of the material is so low. On the global basis, only like 7% or so of the global economy is circular. And the things that are circular typically is high value materials. So this is the key, I think. So if we can achieve that, better pricing mechanism, then yes, definitely.
Only 7%, it sounds like a huge business opportunity here.
Yeah, it is.
So you also said earlier that the manufacturers and designers also have to take the recycling and reuse of their materials in the designing process. How are you addressing that, Victor?
So a term we use internally a lot and with our customers is design for purpose. We usually take an example, you've probably heard this numerous times, but a coffee lid. We use about 300 billion of them each year globally. Takeaway coffee is easy to buy. I probably use 2 a day, and then you toss it in the bin. If you end up in nature, if it doesn't end up in a recycling stream that we can take care of it, it degrades in hundreds of years. Plastic is a fantastic material, and to use your example with piping, perfect example. Piping should last for a long time, and if we separate it correctly, you can take care of it. But single-use products or products that are disposed fairly quickly can end up in landfills and the oceans. Recent study says that we now have microplastics in breast milk, which is horrible. So with design for purpose, we mean to look at how the consumer uses it and choose the material that corresponds to that specification. Now, for us, of course, we come from fiber, so we look at fibers as a natural way, but even plastic, just recycled plastic that can be reused and recycled many times would be a really, really good solution for a lot of products. So I think it's about looking what's available, what can you buy at a sustainable rate, and use that. And where it's not sustainable, let's focus innovation on other materials or other structures in the value chain.
Awesome.
And also maybe not think replacing material with material, but what kind of function do you want? So
Correct.
I do like lids as well, but maybe you don't need a lid, or maybe you don't need a straw, or whatever. So we are all standing here drinking without straws, for example.
Very good example.
So I think that that's also something to have in mind. What actually is the function that we want to? But that's, you were starting with the challenges. That's really challenging.
And I think that's also about addressing consumer behavior, because coming to the lids again, right? In the US, you can buy a Frappuccino, 1.5 liters from a big American chain, where you have coffee, cream, etc., and it takes you 1.5 hours maybe to drink, and you drive in the car. So at that point, you need the lid. In Italy, where you have an espresso for 10 seconds, of course, you don't need the lid. So it's about doing it in a responsible way. Yes, sustainability from an economic perspective. We are a privately held company. We are looking to make a profit. But of course, we need to look at it from a sustainability perspective as well, to not exploit as the first measure. So definitely agree with that.
Joachim?
But I really think that we need to talk to each other, because there's a lot of example of stupidness. For example, the plastic bags, where we increase the taxes and everyone buys paper or multi-use bags to carry home their food, and then they buy plastic rolls to throw it in. So they even use more plastics. And we say, yeah, hooray. But it doesn't work like that. We need to talk to each other. For example, we today recycle PETs and bottles, but we don't reuse when you have soap or other stuffs in the bottles, then we don't reuse it. Why? Maybe we can start there. We have to do something today and something more tomorrow, and see what can we use, what can we do today, not what we can't do. Because if we can do something today, we learn more and we can do something else tomorrow.
Mm. So you've mentioned PET bottles, the PET bottle system as a good example of reuse, and also it's good for the standardization of the material that is reused. Is there a need for sort of new standards or standardization when it comes to materials or recycling, or what do you say, Anders?
Yeah, it is. I strongly think there is a case for I can't imagine we would need all kinds of qualities that we have. It should be possible to reduce them a bit. And if you reduce the number of qualities, reduce the complexity, you increase the possibilities, right? But then you have also the data transfers, because if you have long-lived products, right? If you have the vinyl flooring that sits in a house for like 25 years, if you take such an old floor, take it out, you have PVC there that you couldn't recover, but the additives in there are now forbidden. So you can't. But you don't know, there's no information on this PVC floor, vinyl flooring, if it holds this additive or not. Because that information was available 25 years ago, but not now. So this is one of the things that we're following, because the data thread, it's absolutely vital, because in order 25 years later to get the data, the cost for getting the data far exceeds the value of the polymer itself. So then there is no case. So strongly believe there's a case for standardization, but also for the data thread and information in the material, especially for long-lived materials. And we also, if you look back in history, you see that over time we tend to ban some additives. So what comes in the waste is not appropriate to recover today. And we are still sort of always behind the curve somewhat in the recycling business. In that sense.
Would you like to?
Yeah, well, I think really think that also the little people can do something, but in Sweden we are quite good. There are companies that don't even know how to recycle and throw it in Ganges and so on, and that's a problem, because we have to learn every man and woman to understand that if you can use something and you can reuse it, you can dish it or you can do anything else, and you can choose products that are better for sustainability, then it will change the market.
Right. And Victor, do you see any?
No, I agree that there's a big need for standardization. We look at it from, I agree with all these points, we look at it from a slightly different perspective. We talk to a lot of partners and customers and consumers that are confused. They don't know what to measure up against. Are we talking LCA? What is an LCA? What do you take into account of that? If you take, for example, pulp coming from the forest industry, we talk a lot about harvesting it and then transportation and manufacturing, but the biocircularity and reforesting is something that is very difficult to calculate, so it's hard to show the numbers. So I think a standardization will be very hard to agree for everyone around the table, but we need something so that consumers can actually trust the numbers that we're talking about. And the same goes for, as you said, with older materials. We need to be able to compare with the new knowledge we have today. So I think to help the consumer make an educated choice, as you said, with sustainable products, that's key. So yes, we do see that.
And also, what do you say? Can we standardize or legislate our way out of the problem?
Not maybe completely out of the problem. That would be too optimistic, I think. But I do think that standards would have an important role to play. And also traceability and data is, of course, key, really. And something that we also have been talking about for a long time. But since I'm out talking a lot, and I also get a lot of questions like, why don't you just, as a policymaker, why don't you just put up a level playing field for all of us and decide what should be there and what shouldn't and so on. But then when you're sitting on, and that's easy to say, right? But when you're sitting on the other side trying to develop these policy instruments, it's actually kind of hard because there are different legislations coming from different perspectives. We are coming with the plastic perspective, but then we have the construction and regulation, for example, or the packaging regulation, for example. So we're also kind of it sounds like I'm making an excuse. I don't really like that, but because there are things that we could do, but it's not that much that we can do in Sweden from a Swedish perspective. And also bear in mind, legislation takes ages, as do standardization. So if we get a great idea at the Swedish EPA saying, okay, but we can go for whatever policy instrument that would actually solve this. That would take like 5 years until we have it in place. So I really urge all companies to start working and start walking the right direction already without the policy instruments in place. I do understand the need for them, but it's a slow process.
Okay, so I do understand the legal system in EU, Sweden, very complex for many reasons. So it's hard to sort of do simple things within legislation. I think a way forward could be look upon those things that actually works. We know that deposit systems works. They are quite good. So we have deposit system for soft drinks, but not for shampoos and what have you. So we know that would probably work quite well. We know that standardization of qualities improves, and we know that better sorting improves. So start with the things that we know this will work. This will make things better. So that's my sort of message. We can do something with legislation. It takes a lot of time, very cumbersome to pull it through. But a deposit system could be there. It's about those putting products on the market. They have a choice. They could set up a deposit system.
What do you say, Joakim?
I would say that we really need to set focus, not on what we can't do from yesterday, but if we put a new product on the market, before we do that, we need to talk to the recycling companies. Is this possible to reuse or recycle? Okay, what can we change to do it more recyclable or such things? And also, there are some easy fruits to catch. For example, shampoo bottles and such things. We have a system. It's only to copy and do it on another product.
But the actors working together in your projects, because there are also problems with creating great materials for use in for example cars. Is there any work being done to sort of reduce the number of materials? How are the discussions in your network?
Well, everyone sees that we need to reduce the numbers of materials and fillers. So everyone knows it. The question is, how can we do it in a smart way? But everyone is coming to the table, and everyone willing to discuss it, and everyone sees that we need to do it, because otherwise we only say that we are greenwashing, and they don't want to do it. It have been a couple of years when you, how do you say it, could save your day with greenwashing, but now you can't, because the customers see it and understands it. So now you have to do it for real.
Victor?
There's a lot of challenges that we can address together, and I think, as you said, opening up a dialogue and designing for a purpose is one of the biggest things that we can do. And
we said that legislation takes time, and you took the examples of the ventilators during the pandemic, where everyone came together.
Right.
Do you believe in the sort of the market's ability to solve this problem?
I do.
Quicker?
But there will be a lot of solutions coming out. And I think one of the things that the market needs to do then is to speak the same language, that we can discuss things at the same way, use the same terms, and push the solutions forward. Because yes, the market will bring forward solutions, but it will bring forward competing solutions as well, which is really, really good. That's how the market functions. But if we cannot compare them to each other, then we have an issue. So I think we need to collaborate between the players on the market to do that in a fair way for the consumers.
Joachim?
Yeah, I think Anders and Victor say the same thing, because Victor said that we could do it when the pandemic come in 12 weeks. Anders says if the economic is the problem, and when the pandemic were there, the economic system puts away, and we only focus to fix the problem, to produce smart, everyone together, to save lives, and then we could do it.
So we need strong incentives. So we are at the Sweden Innovation Days. So I would like to ask you, what are some important innovations that you see coming in the next sort of 5-10 years? And not just talking about materials and products, but perhaps also processes and why not inventions or innovations in regulations or policy? What do you say? Åsa, would you like to start?
Yeah, you took my point there. Because I think that innovation in a traditional way, you think about techniques, and that's needed. Of course, we need a lot of innovations in recycling, for example, both chemical and mechanical, and replacing materials, etc., etc. But I do also think that we need lots of innovation in sort of behavior change, in policy making, in the collaboration area. That's also sort of an innovation, as far as I look at it. And then we as research financiers, which we also are, and as our Vinnova as well, we do need to also be able to measure that sort of innovation. So we're often speaking about technology readiness levels, right? You know, technique is ready for the market, or it's testing, or blah, blah. But we need to have the same sort of scale or the same thinking about also other kinds of innovations. So that, I think, is one key for driving us forward. Technical innovations will always be there because we're good at it. Our brains like it. But the other kinds of innovations, we're also good at that, but it also needs to be highlighted a little bit.
Yeah. Anders, what do you say?
Okay, so one of the most important innovations, in a way, then within EU is that we have coming up a more standardized way of sustainability reporting for companies. It will take some time, but I'm convinced that it will contribute to getting closer to, you mentioned this, okay, if we have an LCA, with an LCA you can prove whatever you want, essentially. It depends. But now we will have a standardized way of reporting sustainability data, and I think that is very good. And that will help us getting our eyes on important things, such as sustainable use and recovery of plastics. And then I hold a bit of hopes to breakthroughs within biotechnology, because one of the, you could do chemical recycling with polymers. It's been around, several ways to do it. There is a challenge though, and that is related to scale. Typically you have a large scale system, and that is not so easy to do in real life.
And how can biotechnology help?
Sorry?
How can biotechnology help?
Biotechnology in general can operate on a smaller scale. And typically, when it comes to recycling, you will have less volumes. I mean, look at the existing plastic value chain. It's fairly large scale, based on large-scale refineries. That's the way to do it if you want to reduce the cost. And the same logic applies if you want to do chemical recycling. You need to go big scale. But that is a problem in itself to really, do this large scale. So I have some hopes for biotechnology breakthroughs. There are some startups there and good technologies that could help us to recover polymers in a smaller scale.
So also collaboration between different disciplines and technologies. Victor, what do you say?
Without trying to echo what you've said, because you have great points, I think design processes is a really thing we need to look at as an innovation as well. The software industry has kind of spearheaded how we do innovations and coming up with them in a short amount of time. Our types of industries are slower for good reason, right? Large-scale factories that needs to be built. But if we can, in the design process, start thinking a bit more, I don't want to use a buzzword as agile, but faster, look at one type of material, compare to another, and do those decisions a bit earlier on. That is a key thing to actually getting to that place. And your example with the dashboard in the car was a great one. If we can think in that way in the beginning, before we actually have the problem, that's a great innovation from a design process.
Joachim?
Yeah, I lost my mind, so I come back.
The most important innovations that you see coming.
We have a system where we can produce with less material, plastic material. And we will try to learn more about it and then get it to every companies. So I think we will have a system that needs less plastic in 2 years.
In 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because we will try it already this year, but we then need to learn how to make courses for the employees to learn how to do it, how to produce with it, and how to set up the machines. So we can have it out on the market in 2 years, I think. And since we are an organization, we will do it, and we will take the knowledge to the companies. Like Polka, you don't need to pay for it. You only need to have a membership. Then you get it for free.
2 years sound promising. And Victor, you have the goal of replacing 1 million tons of single-use plastics 2025. So what do others say? What, in the best of worlds, how long would it take to achieve a fully sort of sustainable use of plastics? Anders, what do you say?
Ultimately, it's a pricing issue. That's my first standpoint. So looking on the ETS trading scheme on CO2 allowances, we see steep price increases next coming decade. So, and that will be a very strong driving force. So I'd say around 2035, we will have a significant improvement, I would say. And bear also in mind that we have a stockpile of products and plastics in our society that is not designed to be recovered or handled, and we must manage that for quite some time. So it will take another 30 years of regeneration before we have shifted out, I think.
Åsa, what do you say?
This is, I don't know what my gut feeling tells me, but 2 years is promising, and 2025, I'd say 2035 as well. Yeah. 2030 is too soon, 2040 is too far away.
Victor?
I would agree. Our goal for 2025 is just the first step, but I think we kind of need to split it up. What can we do in a short term? What can we do in a longer term? But the longer term is the more important, and I would agree. 2030, 2035 is probably where we'll see the innovations that we're now working on get their full effect, because these are complex processes that we need to spend time and money on. So we will do a lot in the next few years, but the big transitions will have to come in a few additional years, I would say.
And Joachim, what do you say? When you spoke earlier, you said it happens every day.
I would say, I would say it's impossible to reach 100% even in 2035, but in 3,500 days, if you get a little bit better every day, you will make big steps.
That's a really good point.
Okay, thank you all very much for your participation in this panel. Thank you also to Vinnova and the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency for organizing this session. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you all for watching.